Your opinion, what's the difference between going to the bank versus going to an independent mortgage broker like you to get a mortgage? And what's the advantages and disadvantages of the bank versus independent broker?
Of course. And, I don't want to sit here and badmouth the banks all day, right?
Yeah,
If you have a relationship with the bank, can it be more convenient? Of course. They have your information, they
right.
have your history. You might have a checking account with them, you might have a GIC with them, all that good stuff, right? And if you have a relationship with your financial advisor in the bank, whatever the case is, it might be a convenient thing. Okay.
Okay.
Less documentation, less questions, all of that stuff. And depending on the bank, they may be more flexible in taking appointments. Okay.
Okay.
Those are the advantages. And the banks sometimes, um, they can make certain exceptions within their branch that typically the overall bank may not do. And that's case by case basis. Okay. When it comes to, well, let's stick with the bank. So,
Okay.
with the bank though, the limiting factor with the bank is they're going to offer you only their services and their products,
Of
right?
course.
And each bank is the same but different, like any lender we deal with. And if you don't fit in that box, it's going to be no, we can't help you,
Okay.
right? And I don't think there's a lot more going into that as far as like, hey, how can we solve the problem or how can we adjust it so that the box can fit or it can fit in the box? So, that leads a segue into a broker where, at least for us, we're a bit more flexible. Number one, with myself with appointments. I mean, I understand that if I'm dealing with first time buyers that are working that, 8 to 6 job, well, I have to be able to be taking appointments at 7 p.m., which
Yeah,
which
right.
happens, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, they don't have to come into the office. This is fine, right?
Yeah.
I can meet them at their place. We can go to a coffee shop. We're not going to name brands, just in
Or you
case.
could do Zoom, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
At the same time, it's one application.
Mm,
It's maybe a bit more inconvenient because we have to ask for all the documents,
right.
but it's one application, and we will review it. And if there's anything that may stick out of the box, then we're going to find a way to say, okay, how do we structure this so that it can fit into a box, and which box can it fit into? And it's not just the one bank. It could be bank A, bank B, and we also deal with what's more commonly called now as mortgage finance companies.
Okay.
And these are institutions, like best example I could think of is Equitable Bank. You see them,
Mm,
right? They take deposits, they have high interest savings accounts, but they also lend out loans, right? Mortgages. So that's what they deal with. So they're called mortgage finance companies. So those are the other guys that we really work with that are not really don't have brick and mortar, right?
hmm.
They're more virtual. They might have a branch here and there. I mean, a perfect example was Tangerine way, way, way back
Right.
when it was
Right.
ING Direct,
Yeah.
right? Where you don't really, you don't you knew ING, but you don't go into the mall and see ING um branch. You see, like they had used to have these ATMs and all that stuff. But
Yeah. Right.
and those companies they're chartered banks. They're not
Mm.
just boiler rooms of people. They're chartered banks, and
Right.
they follow the rules and they lend money out. So I think for the convenience for mortgage brokers is number one, this is how we get paid. I think on the bank side, for the most part, whether or not they approve a deal, they're still getting their base salary and
Mm,
maybe a bonus. But for
yeah.
us, you know what? We get paid, and just like you, we get paid on the deal being completed, right? So
Mm.
for us, there's always that, I think, vested interest. There's that care about let's get this deal done. Let's help somebody out.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing, well, from my experience of dealing with mortgage brokers, it's more personable experience versus dealing with a bank.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of our mortgage brokers that we talk to, they're taking calls at like 10, 11, things are
Yeah.
not, 9 to 5 or whatever time the banks are open. So
Yeah.
I think that that gives people some assurance that they could, hey, I'm going to call John. I have a question about my mortgage or something changed or whatever. And would you agree with that? It's more customer
Yeah.
service.
Of course. And I've taken those calls at 10, especially if there's deadlines. Again, it's
Yeah, of course.
we got to find a balance regardless, right? And chances are when you're calling me, you're calling my cell phone.
Hmm.
So, for me it's 2 in 1, right? When you're
Yeah.
when you're talking to somebody in the bank, chances are you're calling bank line, right?
Right.
So I think accessibility there is there. And again, I'm not trying to badmouth all the
No.
bankers or all the banks, but I think the flexibility, the convenience is a big plus for us.
Okay, great.